Welcome to News Edge, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. Picture yourself in Buffalo, New York, heading down the familiar grocery aisle, reaching for your usual bottle of maple syrup. Only to freeze in surprise as you notice the price has soared far beyond what you paid last month. And it's not just syrup. Suddenly, lumber, auto parts, and everyday packaged goods are all more expensive, their price tags climbing higher each week. This isn't just a random spike or a fluke, it's the first visible sign of a major shift in the way the US and Canada do business together, a ripple effect that's now reaching your wallet. For decades, goods moved almost effortlessly across the border, fueling one of the world's strongest and most reliable economic partnerships. This seamless trade helped keep prices stable and shelves stocked on both sides. But today, on September 8, 2025, everything has changed. Canada is now using the same tough trade tactics the US once used against it, signaling a new era of economic confrontation. The result? Higher prices, more uncertainty, and growing frustration for American shoppers and businesses who are now feeling the pinch in their daily lives. This is more than just a policy shift. It's payback for years of US tariffs and trade restrictions, especially those imposed during the Trump era, which strained relations and set the stage for today's standoff. Now, Canada is targeting American products, flipping the script and putting pressure on US industries that once felt protected. The consequences are real and immediate. Higher costs for families, job risks for workers, and a new sense of tension between neighbors who once relied on each other. For Canadians, it's a chance to push back and assert their own interests, but it comes with risks of its own, as higher prices and economic uncertainty ripple northward too. This story isn't just about politics or international headlines. It's about how global decisions and trade wars hit home, affecting families, workers, and small businesses on both sides of the border. In this chapter, we'll break down what's happening, why it matters, and what it could mean for the future of US-Canada relations. Let's dive in and explore the real impact behind the headlines. On a chilly Monday morning, Canada stunned its neighbor by announcing sweeping new restrictions on a wide range of American goods. Florida oranges, California wine, Wisconsin cheese, Michigan auto parts, and many more everyday products that Canadians have long relied on. Trucks loaded with US goods were suddenly halted at the border, and the ripple was felt instantly across industries on both sides. This wasn't a subtle move. Canada, often seen as the quieter, more diplomatic partner, was now openly fighting back, signaling a dramatic shift in its trade policy and its willingness to stand up to American pressure. The official reason? Ottawa says it's to protect Canadian industries from what it calls unfair US competition and government subsidies that tilt the playing field. Canadian officials argue that their workers and businesses deserve a fair shot. The language echoed the very justifications the US has used in the past for slapping tariffs on Canadian products, turning the tables in a way few expected. This bold move directly challenges the spirit of the US-Canada-Mexico agreement, which was designed to reduce trade barriers and foster cooperation across North America. Washington was caught off guard. US officials quickly condemned the restrictions, calling them economic aggression and warning of possible retaliation if Canada doesn't reverse course. The timing couldn't be more precarious. Both countries are still recovering from the pandemic, with fragile supply chains, high inflation, and consumers already feeling the pinch at the checkout. But Canada is betting that taking a stand now will pay off in the long run, even if it means some short-term pain for businesses and consumers. The government is urging Canadians to support local industries and brace for a period of adjustment. The world is watching closely. Will this escalate into a full-blown trade war, or force both sides back to the negotiating table for a new deal? For now, the border is no longer just a line on a map. It's become a battleground for economic power and national pride. The stakes are high. Everyday prices, thousands of jobs, and the future of North American trade hang in the balance as uncertainty grows. All eyes are now on Washington. The next move belongs to the United States, and the world is waiting to see what happens next. To understand this conflict, let's break down trade laws. Think of them as the rules for how countries buy and sell with each other, like traffic laws for global business. Tariffs are taxes on imports, making foreign goods more expensive to protect local industries. Quotas limit how much of a product can come in. Non-tariff barriers like paperwork or strict standards can quietly block trade too. Countries use these tools to protect jobs, ensure safety, or gain leverage in disputes. But there's a downside. Tariffs and quotas often mean higher prices for consumers, and when one country imposes restrictions, the other usually retaliates. This tit-for-tat can spiral into a trade war, hurting both sides. The challenge is balancing protection for local industries with the benefits of open trade. In the US-Canada case, both countries are now using these laws as weapons. The result? Rising costs and growing uncertainty. Trade laws aren't just technical, they shape what you pay and what's on the shelf. To see why Canada is acting now, rewind to the Trump administration. America First meant tough new tariffs on imports, even from allies like Canada. Using laws like Section 232, the US slapped tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, citing national security. Canada was stunned. After all, the two countries are close military partners. The US also targeted Canadian softwood lumber, claiming unfair subsidies. These moves hurt Canadian industries and raised costs for American builders and consumers. Canada didn't just accept it, they hit back with tariffs on US goods, from whiskey to lawnmowers. This tit-for-tat hurt businesses on both sides. The key lesson: the US showed it could use domestic laws to bypass trade agreements and impose barriers. Canada took note. Now they're using the same playbook. The precedent was set in Washington. The mastermind behind Canada's new strategy, Mark Carney, former central banker and economic heavyweight. Carney argues, if the US can use its laws to block Canadian goods, Canada should do the same. Canadian law allows action against imports deemed unfairly subsidized or dumped, just like US law. Instead of waiting for slow trade tribunals, Carney's approach is bold and direct. The products targeted, Florida oranges, Wisconsin cheese, California wine, are no accident. They hit key US states, creating political pressure in Washington. The message: if you want access to our market, open yours to us. This is a major shift for Canada, moving from quiet diplomacy to open confrontation. It's risky, but it's changing the power dynamic. Canada is no longer just reacting, it's playing offense. The rules have changed. This isn't just a headline, it's in your shopping cart and paycheck. For Americans, tariffs mean higher prices and fewer choices. Companies losing access to Canada may raise prices or cut jobs at home. A Michigan auto worker or California wine grower could feel the pinch if exports drop. Canada is America's biggest export market. When it closes, jobs are at risk. Canadians will see fewer US brands and possibly higher prices, but local producers could benefit. A Canadian cheesemaker might see a boom, while a US competitor struggles. But if the US retaliates, Canadian exporters could be hit hard too. Trade wars create cycles of retaliation, hurting workers and consumers on both sides. The real losers? Ordinary people, factory workers, truck drivers, and families. This conflict isn't abstract. It's about jobs, prices, and livelihoods. The fallout is personal, not just political. Everyone feels it. Leading economists widely interpret Canada's latest move as a direct response to years of US protectionism, which has steadily increased tensions between the two countries. Many experts believe this is not just a reaction, but a calculated shift in strategy. Dr. Emily Vance, a respected trade expert, explains, Canada tried diplomacy and legal challenges for years, hoping to resolve disputes through established channels. Now it's strategic retaliation. Canada is using America's own tactics against them, signaling a new phase in the trade relationship. By targeting politically sensitive products, Canada puts immediate and intense pressure on US leaders, forcing them to respond quickly to their constituents' concerns. Michael Chen, a former US negotiator, adds, tariffs on steel are broad and affect many, but when you hit Wisconsin cheese, you get calls from Congress almost instantly. The risk, he warns, is escalation, where each side raises the stakes. If both countries double down, supply chains could seize up, leading to shortages of goods and major disruptions in trade. This would fuel inflation, drive up prices for everyday items, and cause significant job losses across multiple industries. The US and Canadian economies are deeply linked. Millions of jobs and billions in trade depend on this relationship. A full-blown trade war could tip both economies into recession, with ripple effects felt far beyond their borders. There's also a bigger danger: undermining the global trading system that has kept markets stable for decades. If the US and Canada ignore the very rules they helped create, it raises doubts for every other nation. Why should anyone else follow them? This could spark a wave of protectionism worldwide, as countries raise barriers and retreat from cooperation, threatening global prosperity. The stakes go far beyond North America. They're truly global, with the world's eyes fixed on what happens next. The world is watching closely, waiting to see if cooler heads and wise leadership will ultimately prevail. The lesson is clear: trade wars are easy to start, but incredibly hard to stop. In the end, everyone pays the price: consumers, workers, and entire economies. Behind the headlines, this is a story about people, neighbors, friends, and families. The US-Canada border isn't just a line, it's a lifeline for communities and businesses. A Vermont jam maker who sells in Quebec now faces paperwork and taxes that threaten her business. A Canadian trucker hauling California produce to Vancouver faces delays and uncertainty. These aren't just statistics, they're real lives disrupted. The trade spat builds invisible walls, turning partners into competitors. The cost is measured in lost jobs, failed businesses, and strained relationships. It's the anxiety of a worker fearing layoffs, or a consumer losing access to essentials. The human toll is often overlooked, but it's the most important part of the story. Trade wars hurt people first. This isn't just about politicians or CEOs, it's about your wallet, your job, and your future. Trade disputes shape what you pay, what you buy, and where you work. The core question: do we want open borders and more choices, or protection for local jobs at a higher cost? The US and Canada are so intertwined that a trade war is like a family feud. Everyone gets hurt. Cooperation is hard, but conflict is costly. Even the closest partnerships can be strained when the rules change. This story is a warning. Global decisions have local consequences. Understanding these dynamics matters for everyone. The choices leaders make now will shape the economy for years. The future of trade and your daily life hangs in the balance. Stay informed. The next chapter is being written now.